Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Capture webinar. My name is Jack Klett, and I am Director of Graduate and Online Initiatives for Capture Higher Ed. So happy to have you back. For this topic, we are covering 3 digital ad strategies for recruiting continuing education students. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. I want to talk a bit about the continuing education market, exactly what kind of programs we're talking about here, and what type of students we're talking about. That will tee up the rest of our presentation. I want to talk about the 3 Capture essentials: identify, convert, enroll. Then we'll cover those 3 strategies and the importance of measurable results. We'll hear from a Capture partner, which is always fun to do. And then I want to make sure you have a clear implementation checklist so you can take the strategies and what we've talked about today and have a bit of a guide to help you kind of go through and determine how best you can begin to implement some of the ideas that are shared today. And then last, we'll end with future conversations. So just different ways in which we can connect to talk about what you're currently doing, what you hope to do. I'm always happy to learn about what folks are doing, so that I understand and can better communicate to others about some of the really fascinating, innovative things that we're doing as it relates to identifying interest, converting folks through that student decision journey, and then ultimately making that student institution fit that leads to enrollment. So let's get started with continuing education, the market. So in short, what are we talking about when we talk about continuing education? Continuing education can mean a number of things. Basically, when we talk about continuing education, for the purposes of today, we're talking about how it relates outside of the traditional 18 to 22-year-old campus-based full-time undergraduate student. Are we talking about degree programs? Yes, because a lot of our continuing education offices, units at our institutions include things like adult and professional studies. That means that we are often talking about undergraduate degree completion programs. Sometimes these are accelerated in nature. So we're often talking about certain professional studies programs that can even lead to a graduate degree, a graduate credential. Sometimes we're talking about certifications that are formalized in curriculum certifications that lead to a baccalaureate, a post-bac, even a graduate certification. These can also be professional certifications. So think about the different associations, the different occupations that require certain professional credentials. The preparation to receive those credentials are some of the programs that are the most popular on our campuses. Micro-credentials, these are very popular now. Things like badges that acknowledge that you have a specific set of skills that you learned as part of a continuing education experience. We talk a lot about continuing education units across various professions. So CEUs, as we call them, these are formalized curriculum moments that are focused on keeping people up to date with developments in their specific field, profession, industry. Sometimes these are requirements by professional associations to continue to practice in the field. Sometimes these are specific to making sure that you still have an active licensure. So a lot of our continuing education programs and the learning that we're providing can lead to these continuing education units. And then we have a host of non-degree options. Some of these things, like the certificates I mentioned, are technically non-degree options. They're not courses that are leading to the end goal of a completed graduate degree or undergraduate degree. Instead, these are non-degree courses that folks sometimes just take because they have a specific passion in the subject, or they're looking to do something with their time. They just have a love of learning. Those non-degree courses are part of our continuing education conversations for this webinar. The continuing education market itself is fascinating. There are 36 million adults with college credits but no degree. That's a massive potential market. It's estimated that about 10%, so 3.5 million adults, are classified as high potential to re-enroll and complete a degree. So this is why it's so critical that you identify these future students, that you're able to nurture them, build relationships with them This ultimately leads to their conversion through the enrollment funnel and ultimately to their enrollment. 58% of these potential completers are below the age of 30. This is a digital savvy population, and that is our strategic focus for today. All right. Identify, convert, enroll. These are what I refer to as Capture's essentials. So in everything that we do, we focus on being the absolute best in these areas. Building and identifying interested prospective students, forging and nurturing the relationship to foster conversion and progression through the funnel so prospective students happily take that next step and respond to that call to action. All leading to the fit, that mission fit, that student fit moment of enrollment. And doing it all in a way that is clear and transparent, that provides for measurable results and your ability to understand the return on your recruitment and enrollment marketing investment. I'll emphasize this a bit later when we will hear directly from a Capture partner who is enjoying a 70% plus increase in conversions. So how do we deploy these Capture essentials? What powers these Capture essentials of identify, convert, and enroll? And the answer is behavioral intelligence. Now, I've presented enough about behavioral intelligence to know that usually I get blank stares because folks are like, what is behavioral intelligence? It's pretty simple, really. Since our inception as a company, Capture has sought to fundamentally shift how institutions engage with prospective students. So we believe that measuring prospective student engagement allows us to maximize recruitment activities, serving the right message at the right time when that prospective student is most ready to receive that information. So is it early in the morning while they're having their coffee, getting ready to start their day? Perhaps it's after midnight when they're finally at home after a late shift. Behavioral intelligence understands this and triggers automated outreach to accommodate that specific individual based on what we have measured and learned from their specific web behaviors. Our data scientists and software developers have created an entire behavioral intelligence platform to power a fairly robust set of solutions. So Capture believes that individual prospective student behaviors must be recognized in order to cultivate relationships that lead to a match between the institution and the student. That's that mission fit alignment we're talking about. We measure these behaviors, and that behavioral intelligence is what then powers the various other solutions and services that we provide, including digital advertising, which we will discuss in greater detail here in a moment. If you are like me, when I was leading recruitment for a post-traditional population, you likely didn't have the most robust team to do all of the things that needed to be done, right? Our units are fairly small, certainly compared to our traditional undergraduate counterparts. Capture recognizes this, so we deploy our platform, these solutions, and the strategies that power them through a managed service that includes a team of collaborators, of coordinators, of communicators, creatives, all dedicated to your specific goals. So now that you know that in all we do, Capture is focused on identification, conversion, enrollment, and measurement. It's important to measure those results. And you know that these Capture essentials are powered by behavioral intelligence. Let's dive into those three key continuing ed digital strategies, and let's do our best. Let's do our best to keep it simple. We often hear recruiters and enrollment professionals say things like, there are so many options. How do I keep up with all the different types of digital marketing and digital advertising? I mean, there's pay-per-click, there's retargeting, There's SEM, there's SEO. What am I doing? How do I do it all? I get it. It can sometimes feel completely overwhelming. And that's why it's best to simplify as much as possible. So I want to thank Leonardo da Vinci here for this wonderful quote: simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And if that is indeed accurate, then I am a very simple man. So this brings us back to our capture essentials, right? We're going to keep it simple. Before even thinking about what type of digital products you should leverage, think about what the goal of the digital campaign is. So doing this will simplify your options. So for today, our digital ad strategies will focus on identification and conversion as our goals. And ultimately, these efforts will lead us to that alignment between the institution and the student that culminates in enrollment. I've worked with so many folks who felt that people simply didn't know about the existence of their continuing and professional studies programs. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with faculty, with program directors, program chairs about getting ad space on big billboards up and down I-95. I live here in Philadelphia. I-95 runs right through the city. And I have to tell you, while I was never a big fan of billboards, I couldn't argue that making people aware of our offerings was indeed a good idea. Digital advertising is a great vehicle to build this awareness. This is all the more important by the fact that so much of our in-person effectiveness right now has been curtailed by the pandemic. So we need to rely more on digital engagements. So let's look at how to do this. Let's start with social marketing to an unknown audience. So we're going to go through a number of different slides like this that will talk about the goal, the product, the audience, and how everything kind of comes together. So we'll start here. The goal, identify, right? That capture essential of identify. The digital product. For this particular goal, we're going to use the digital product of social marketing. We are focusing on an unknown audience. Remember, the goal here is to identify interest. So we're going to folks that we don't know yet. They haven't been identified, right? So by definition, we're going to use an unknown audience to help us identify. Since we don't know who they are, but we want to make sure that we are targeting the right people with our digital advertising, we have the ability through social marketing to custom build audience based on attributes. You literally go into Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn and there's a targeting feature. And you are providing things like, I want to target people with this in this location, or I want to target people who have this education level, who are interested in this type of program, who have certain behaviors and interests that I know align with prior populations I've had success enrolling in this particular program. Once those audience targeting filters are set, the social platform's only going to deliver your advertising to people who meet those specific qualities, those specific attributes that you're targeting. So by definition, you're going to have higher click rates compared to standard ads because you're not casting a wide net. You're being very targeted in this approach. So identifying interest, the digital product is social marketing. We're using targeting attributes to build audiences to an unknown audience where we know our ads will resonate. The same product, social marketing, can be used to deliver social ads to a known audience. So continuing education offices work with specific organizations, professional associations, companies, even government for specific training and skill development programs. Based on these relationships, we are provided lists from time to time. Or you may acquire lists through a business and consumer database company, a list of teachers, for example. So using social matching, we can scrub the list to match to actual social profiles on the platform and then specifically place ads in those social news feeds where that match has been made. All right, so the goal, identify interest. The product, the same product we used in the last strategy. This one focused on social marketing. This time, rather than serving to an unknown audience, we are serving to a known audience that is known to us because these are folks who we believe might be interested in our programs based on their profession, based on the professional association they're a member for, or they work for an organization or a company that we have a partnership with. So that is how this known audience is coming to us. But they're just leads, right? They're just folks that we think might be interested. So we want to make sure that we're serving advertising to them in a way that allows them to identify that interest. So we're going to take the things that we know about them from that list that's been provided, either an email or a home address, something that will serve as a unique identifier. So when that list is scrubbed against all the social profiles that exist on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, we're able to make that match. And when we make that match, we can target that specific individual with our digital advertising that's going to show up in their social news feed. And again, we see higher click rates compared to standard ads when those ads are delivered through social media. Typically, the lists, as I mentioned, that we receive have an email associated with them. So email targeting is a great way to get your brand and program message in front of individuals most likely to demonstrate interest. Okay, so the goal remains to identify interest. The digital product, email targeting. Now, I want to be clear here. This is not email marketing. We are not sending emails to these folks. We may be doing that also, but that's not what I mean here for this digital strategy. All right, we're using the email address as a unique identifier, allowing for the serving of digital ads on all devices, right? Like this iPhone, wherever that email has been accessed. So if someone had my email address, and I've definitely accessed my email through this phone, then they could serve to me on this device, because I accessed my email on it, digital advertising. Any device that I've accessed my email on, I can be served digital ads through email targeting. Now, by definition, this is focusing on a known audience, right? Because we have to know their email in order to serve ads. This is a great way to reach student lists. So those leads that we want to make inquiries, or those suspects that we want to make prospects, we're matching based on available email address and serving digital ads to those folks, allowing them to raise their hand and identify interest because they're receiving digital advertising on any device that they have accessed, where they've accessed their email. So you've identified the interest. Now it's time to advance prospects through your enrollment funnel. So let's shift our attention to the capture essential known as conversion. So we call it a conversion when the recipient of a marketing message performs a desired action. So here we see email targeting and social matching being used. These are two digital products we saw used to help identify interest too, but now they're being used differently in order to aid conversion, to take those folks who are already known to you, who are in your system, in your CRM, and influence them along their student decision journey. So this is our first conversion, our digital campaign with the goal of converting, right? Conversion, taking a desired action through our enrollment funnel. The digital products are email targeting and social matching. So we're going to influence prospective students to take that specific action through their enrollment journey, whether that be to visit, to apply, to deposit, to register. We're going to focus, like I said, on a known audience, folks that are currently in your pool. We're able to do this because we have their email address, so we can target them. We have those unique identifiers that will allow us to match to their social profiles. And I should mention that your alumni are indeed prospects. They are indeed inquiries. No other population knows you better than your alumni. They have consumed your educational product. So treat them as folks who don't need to learn more, who don't need to discover. These are people that you are ready to take through a conversion journey, that you're ready to nurture and foster that relationship in a way that allows for conversion and taking next steps through that enrollment funnel for continuing education. Many continuing education departments have programs that are geared toward professional certification. So think things like a PMP certification, a project management professional certification program that helps folks prepare for the PMP exam. Graduating seniors are often an ideal population for these professional certifications, especially if their undergraduate program did not include them as part of their program curriculum. If you have a professionally focused graduate program as part of your program portfolio, this population will also benefit from that continuing education opportunity as well. Household IP targeting, which is the digital product we're going to talk about now, is an effective product for your graduating seniors because it allows for the targeting of a specific household address. So this means family members will be served the advertising as well as providing for a family conversation moment about what the continuing education opportunity may mean for career and for salary. So the goal is to convert. It's a conversion goal. The digital product, household IP targeting, focusing on your known audience, in this case, an audience that are your graduating seniors. We want to reach them through digital advertising. We're going to do that by using their household address. That's the unique identifier. So this time, not email. We're doing that strategically because we want the entire family to have a conversation about what this opportunity could mean. What does this continuing education opportunity mean for the graduating senior's career, for the potential salary that that individual can make? So by using the household address through household IP targeting, every single device within that household is going to receive this advertising, all right? The entire family, not just the graduating senior. And that ultimately can spur some really productive conversations about the opportunities that continuing education provides. The goal is still conversion. This time we're using web and social retargeting as our product. Retargeting is a highly effective way to keep your continuing education programs top of mind. So in this case, we are focusing on whether known to us or unknown to us, we know that this population is an engaged audience. How do we know that? We know that because the only way they are going to receive these digital ads, whether it's through their web journey or through their social media feed, is if they came to your website. If they come to your website, that visit interacts with this wonderful thing called a pixel. And what happens is that pixel then continues to follow them in a way so that as they go through their various web journey and social media feeds, by the way, you're not tracking where they go. We don't know that. What we do know was that they were on your .edu looking at specific continuing education options, wherever that pixel is embedded. So because of that, that allows us to serve digital advertising as they continue through their web journey and through their social feeds. We are retargeting them. We're trying to drive them back to the website, trying to keep them engaged to continue learning about our continuing education options, and ultimately having them convert to take a next step, whether it be to visit, to apply, ultimately to enroll and register. It is time in our webinar to be joined by a Capture partner. So as we try to do with every webinar, at least as much as possible when we're sharing a bit of thought leadership, a bit of best practice, it's always good if we can include a current partner to join us to share their experiences and what's going on as it relates specifically to the topic. I'm super happy to be able to do that today with our wonderful partner, Roberts Wesleyan College. It is my pleasure to welcome to the webinar Jason Hamill, who is Roberts' Director of Marketing Operations for Adult and Graduate Education. Jason, Welcome to the webinar.
Hey, thank you for inviting me, Jack. Pleasure to be here.
You got it. I'm glad you're able to break free. I know things are probably a bit crazy. To
Yeah, it's
break
very
free,
busy.
yeah, and join me for a little bit. So, you might have been listening in to what we've been talking about. Basically, talking about digital strategies as it relates to really the continuing education, adult professional studies market, which is why I'm so happy to have you here. I'm curious, kind of right off the bat, if you wouldn't mind talking a bit about how it is you've had to adjust some of your recruitment and enrollment marketing strategies, really to account for what has likely been fewer in-person interactions. I mean, this population is one that we do tend to spend a good deal of time with in-person interactions, both from a kind of career educational advising perspective, but also really as it relates to just communicating the value proposition of the program. So how have you had to adjust some of your recruitment and enrollment marketing strategies to account for this?
Yeah, so we've had to pivot quite a bit, but I think the sweet spot right now is just trying to figure out where we can provide those one-to-one connections between our enrollment team and prospective students. So we've implemented a few different pieces of technology from a marketing side to make that easier. So like scheduling appointments using a button in our signature blocks for our enrollment team, so people have access to their calendars. Implementing live chat on our website, looking for opportunities to just make sure that a prospective student has a direct connection to the enrollment people who can actually answer their questions. From a marketing strategy, just focusing more on who's actually in our funnel. As it's hyper competitive right now for any new leads. So just trying to employ the tools that we have to better convert the people that are already in our funnel who have already raised their hands for Roberts.
Great. So you've been adjusting in some ways that I think would resonate with folks and obviously make sense with what is going on right now. And this webinar, as you know, is really about the importance of that digital marketing, especially in this environment. How important has digital been in your overall marketing strategy?
Yeah, I think digital marketing continues to be the main pulse to maintain awareness and to drive new leads in this competitive environment. But again, like I said, the competition is fierce for new leads. So again, we're redirecting that technology and those marketing tools to the thousands of people that are already in our database and remarketing to them.
So really using that really to drive those calls to action and to get those conversion activities happening.
Absolutely. If you think about it, whatever your cost per lead is for your organization, you've already paid for all of those leads that are in your funnel, right? So they raised their hand, they filled out your forms, they may have gone to different steps in your funnel. So they're low hanging fruit. So if we just unleash all of the marketing technologies that we have on those people and drive conversions there, the losses we're experiencing in new lead generation don't feel as bad. That makes sense.
Makes complete sense.
Right.
Thanks for that. That was a great tip.
Yeah.
And a great strategy for folks to really do something with what we've been talking about, which is that known audience. So, we talk about using digital for as strategies to serving ads to both unknown folks, right? Where you're using those targeting attribution filters so that you can get the right audience, but you don't quite know them. But then you're right, you have all of those folks that you do know who have raised their hand, who are identified, who are in your funnel. That you can communicate with. You have an adult and graduate open house that is coming up here shortly. How are registrations going for that event? And is that I'm assuming that is a virtual event?
Yeah, the event is this Wednesday, and it is a virtual event. We had a virtual event in June. We did an open house and. But right now, the registrations are amazing. We're at 223 people registered as of this morning when I had checked. But, I would say in June, we had a really tough decision to make, right? When COVID hit, we usually do 2 open houses a year, one in June and one in October, November timeframe. And COVID hit, everybody shut down, and nobody in our market was doing open house. So we had a tough decision. Do we pivot and go virtual because everything was being canceled? And we decided to go for it and stick out our strategy. We have a very sound marketing and communication plan that yields us a pretty high enrollment or registration for open house. So we decided to stay the course and just move everything into a virtual format. We netted about 150 registrations in June, which normally we're right around 200. So that was, I thought, pretty remarkable given the circumstances. And this fall, I think a lot of people in our market, a lot of colleges in our market kind of caught on. And I was a little bit concerned because we had, I would say, competition from a 100-mile radius with billboards, radio, digital ads promoting their open houses this fall. We were kind of the last in line. So we're at the end of October, and many of these other ones were the beginning of October. And so I was a little bit worried about how our registration were going to look, but we're at 223 and we still have a day or two to go. We have a huge email reminder going out today to our funnels. So I'm expecting another 25 plus people to register. So if we're at 250 to 300, I wouldn't be surprised. But to kind of put this into context, last fall, when we did open house without COVID, we're at about 145. So we're beating last fall's numbers in the midst of the pandemic and this hyper competitive environment. I was really worried, but I think it shows that if you work a plan, you have a good plan and you continue to use it and employ the technologies that you have with precision and targeting, you can really drive good results.
That's exactly right. And congratulations. I kind of, as it relates to pushing registrations for an event, I always say it takes a village in that it takes a nice marketing mix, right, to make that happen.
Yep.
I mean, Jason, when you think about it, so if you compare your last open house, where you said, I think 145 registrants, if you hit that 250, I mean, that's like a 70+% increase in registration. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's huge. So we're looking forward to seeing, the yield on that. Obviously, registration and attendance are two different things, but we have a history of about a 50 to 70% attendance rate on any one of these types of events. So we'll see how it goes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to you reporting back.
Sure.
So I want to show this on the screen here. So let's go ahead and bring that on up. You included marketing automation on your .edu itself. What we're looking at here is the Roberts Wesleyan College website, and you can see in that kind of yellow circle there is a creative. It's a little piece of toaster, what we refer to as a toaster, right? It pops up there.
Yep.
Focusing on your adult and graduate virtual open house coming up. So you display content, in this case specific to the open house. You could use this for any number of calls to action for various conversion activities. You also included capture links in your email. So you mentioned your email invitation itself for the open house. So you include capture links, and so the audience knows these links allow you to measure the engagement of your email recipients once they click through to the .edu. So you're not only able to measure things like open rates and click-throughs, but you're actually able through that click to identify that individual and measure their various actions on the .edu itself, the pages they're visiting, the content they're consuming, et cetera. So why is it that marketing automation and the ability to measure these individual prospect engagements, why is that important to you?
I think it should be important to anybody that's in marketing, for one, but we tag and track everything that we do in marketing and utilize marketing automation to really drive conversions across many touch points of the student buyer journey. Excuse me. So it's important to me to know how and when people convert on our site. I'll say that having real-time information from Capture in the form of our daily visitor reports that tell us and our admissions team who's hitting the website is a powerful, actionable piece of data that we have. And with a lean enrollment team, these DVRs, as we call them, help our team to prioritize the work and know who to follow up with and when, which is critical, right? And so again, the name of the game right now for us has been conversion. So we really lean on these pieces of content to redirect people to the right spot. We rely on those CBE codes in our email to really help our admissions team know who's engaging with the content and when. And at the end of the day, we employ every tool at our disposal right now to convert fewer visitors at a higher rate, which my team is doing right now. It's an amazing thing. So I think for this webinar, it's important to know that the status of every single person in your funnel is important. Your team should know what the status is and identify what their hurdles are. And having this technology to help you see when they hit the website and if they're identified or not really provides an invaluable piece of data or information for your team to be able to work those funnels, work those people into conversions.
Jason, that is super helpful. I think a lot of folks really understand the power of digital advertising and digital marketing, but don't necessarily think about it as it relates to just their own website. I mean, so many people have their own website, and you typically have a digital campaign, and you'll push to a landing page that you set up with some type of embedded form or something to measure attribution, things like that, to measure kind of the return on investment of that digital campaign. So thanks for sharing kind of how you use, at least in this case, capture software Engage to measure results and to be able to kind of quantify that digital attribution, if you will.
Right. Yeah, it's super important.
Thanks so much. And look, good luck on the open house. We hope it's a great event and that you blow that prior open house out of the water.
Absolutely. We do too. So thanks so much for inviting me, Jack. Great to chat with you.
You got it, Jason. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Okay. To recap, we have discussed digital advertising for identification and conversion purposes to both unknown and known audiences. Jason talked about the importance of measuring engagement on the Roberts Wesleyan website. So this brings us to our third strategy, digital advertising on your institution's website. So last month, I shared the student decision journey of Lisa, a prospective student for Capture's partner, the University of Denver, specifically the Mortgage College of Education. It was a webinar that I did last month specifically on graduate education. So it's especially relevant for our conversation today, especially after hearing from Jason. So here we see a real life example of a real life student, Lisa, as she's being guided along her student enrollment journey by digital advertising and marketing automation on Denver's website. So here we're seeing both the power of identification and conversion in action. Let's take a look at how this unfolds for Lisa. So University of Denver is using Capture's product Engage, which is powered by behavioral intelligence. It's part of that behavioral intelligence platform. And Engage allows for the triggering of dynamic content or digital advertising on the website itself based on specific behaviors that a web visitor is making. So Engage realized on May 15th that an unknown visitor had visited the University of Denver's website. And in knowing that this particular visitor was unknown, Engage served something called a progressive identification form. Basically, this is it's a form of digital advertising, though one you can interact with. It's basically a short form fill. So May 15th, Engage says, hey, there's someone that we don't know on the website. May 16th, Lisa went ahead and identified herself by completing these progressive identification forms that were served to her. So May 16th, Lisa is identifying interest. So Engage on May 17th and May 19th, when Lisa came back to the site, is triggering digital advertising again on the institution's website itself encouraging Lisa, because Engage knows that Lisa is an inquiry and has not yet applied, to go ahead and take that step of apply. So on both May 17th and May 19th, when Lisa was on the site, Engage was saying, hey, Lisa, we're encouraging you to apply. May 21st, Lisa became an applicant. So when Lisa came back to the website the very next day, Engage knew this. And since Engage knew it, Engage served digital advertising to Lisa that said, hey, you should complete your application process, which Lisa ultimately did complete. Engage knew this. So Engage knew not only did Lisa complete and that Lisa had been admitted, on June 24th, Engage went a step further and said, hey, Lisa, you're admitted, but you haven't paid your deposit. So it was pushing digital advertising to encourage Lisa to take that next step of depositing, which Lisa ultimately did the very next day on June 25th. Overall, what we know, and this comes to the importance of measuring results. Overall, we know that Lisa visited the site 35 times. She viewed a total of 151 pages on the site from May to June 2020. And she received digital advertising, dynamic content, urging her to request information, to apply, to complete the process, and to deposit. Again, those three capture essentials: identify, convert, enroll. This takes us now to our implementation checklist. It's important for me to know that you are able to actually do something actionable with what you've learned here today. So the very first thing that you should do is think about how it is you're going to redefine the way in which you engage with prospects. We talked a bit about it with Jason in terms of the fact that continuing education students, especially when you're talking about that 35 million and 36 million that have college credits but have not completed the degree. These are folks that sometimes require, in the past, a lot of advising, a lot of coaching on what options would work best for them, what credits would transfer, where they would start, what would their course load look like, how would they proceed to degree while balancing work and family and all those other things that are demands on their time. So how do you provide for prospective student engagement in a time where those in-person events that we're used to can't happen? And at the same time, do you need to redefine what prospective student engagement even looks like and how you're measuring that? And if the answer to those questions is yes, then you're going to think through that and come up with a plan and check that off the list. You're going to determine your digital strategy. Is it to identify? Is it to convert? And is that strategy going to be used to, based on how you answered box number 1 here, is that digital strategy going to be used to replace or supplement in-person engagement? You should determine whether or not that is in-house work that you're going to do. Do you have the marketing staff and team knowledgeable enough about digital advertising to actually serve these campaigns, work on these campaigns with you and for you? Or do you need to outsource them? At Capture, we don't really like to use that term of outsource. We are a managed service. I talked about the team that works as an extension of your team. We consider it more of a shared source type of arrangement. Please, regardless of whether you're doing it in-house or you're working with a company like Capture, set metrics for effectiveness. Have ways in which you can truly measure your results, because it's only through really being able to measure your results in an effective way that you'll be able to evaluate the return on investment of that digital spend. Was that digital campaign something that was worthwhile? Did it have the intended outcome? Both Roberts Wesleyan and the University of Denver use Capture's Engage software to power their identification and conversion strategies, as well as measure the results of these efforts. Engage, to be clear, is Capture's premier marketing automation solution for higher ed, leveraging the power of behavioral intelligence-infused marketing tactics. Engage ultimately connects your institution to prospective students, again, where they are, with information that is relevant to them and delivered to them at the right time when they're most receptive to that message. Future conversations. With 36 million adults with college credits but no degree, 3.5 million of them having a high potential to re-enroll and complete, it is so critical that you identify these future students, that you're able to nurture them, forge relationships with them that ultimately will lead to their conversion and enroll them. I'm always happy to listen to what you are thinking, what you're doing, what you hope to do. So feel free to send me an email and we can coordinate a time to talk about your specific needs, your concerns, or hopes for your current or even upcoming enrollment cycle. I'm Jack Klett. I hope you learned a lot today about those 3 Capture essentials, those 3 digital strategies. Thanks so much for joining me today. I want to thank Jason Hamill from Roberts Wesleyan for joining me. Until we see each other again, everybody, for another Capture webinar, make it a great day.